Today on a very special What the Hell, Karen? Jose Maria DeCastro, aka Delete Laws, aka Chille, aka Chalito, plays 2 games. Fuck around and find out, and play stupid games, win stupid prizes. On today's docket, case number 24-006842, Jose Maria DeCastro is in the courtroom for his arraignment for his February 14, 2024 arrest for the charges of obstruction and giving false information to a police officer. Jose Maria DeCastro, come on down.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. All right, Mr. DeCastro, this is an obstructing or false info charge. It is case 24-006842. Obviously, I'm going to ask you, you understand your proceedings are being filmed?
Of course.
Okay.
They're here because I'm here.
Right, okay, and just so that the record's clear, you have no objection to that?
Of course not.
Okay.
I would like the transparency. I
Oh,
appreciate
no, that's
it.
fine. I need to ask that. City, there's no other issues for you with respect to this being filmed?
No.
Okay. All right, Mr. DeCastro, did you get a copy of the complaint?
I did. Only question I have is who's the prosecutor? What's the prosecutor's name?
Well, let me ask a couple questions, and then we'll get into what your questions are. Did you review and understand this?
I don't understand it. I don't understand how I can be charged with obstruction for filming a cop.
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
So,
He knew his obstruction charge was for his non-compliance of the officer's lawful orders. But like all freedom fighters, he is trying to hide behind the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. However, filming the police does not fall under the First Amendment or any part of the U.S. Constitution.
I'm asking a much more basic question. You do not have to agree with this. This is
Do I
simply
understand I'm in
valid.
charge of the misdemeanor?
Yes.
I do understand I'm in charge
Okay,
of the
that's
misdemeanor.
literally it.
I have trial tomorrow for the exact same thing 1 year ago.
For getting his 5A card and trifle that remind him that he has the right, under the Fifth Amendment, to remain silent so as not to incriminate himself, Chille volunteers information regarding his upcoming trial to the court.
In this jurisdiction?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't want to get into any of that.
Sure.
Today, we're just here for purposes of this. It's a very procedural type of thing today for the arraignment. So you do understand what you got charged with. You do not have to agree with this. This is just an allegation. So you don't need me to read it to you.
I don't.
Okay, very good. And are you planning on hiring an attorney to represent yourself?
I will have a standby attorney for this case.
You will have a standby
Yes.
attorney? Okay.
Because I think that I'm going to win this easy. It's on film, and I wasn't obstructing anybody.
Okay, all right, Mr.
Is this
Patrick.
the prosecutor, Matthew B.
Okay,
Walker?
let me do my part first, and then we can get into what it is. So, because I need to know, are you proceeding on your own? Do you want to have an attorney? Because I will give you time to talk to an attorney on your own if that's the route that you would like to go.
I will have a standby attorney for
Okay.
this case.
So typically, I would set this for a pre-trial to give you an opportunity to obtain discovery and for your attorney to find out whatever all is associated with this.
Sure.
So I can set that over for a pre-trial date to give you the opportunity to do that. Would you like to do that?
That'd be great.
Okay, and then what is it that you need to tell me without talking about the facts?
Can he refrain from talking about the facts of this case and keep his bravado in check? Let's find out.
I just need to know if this is the prosecutor's name. Is that the person prosecuting, Matthew B. Walker?
That is a good question. I will tell you that the city attorney is Jeffrey Dorokat, and that's the person's name on the upper left-hand corner of the complaint. Matthew Walker is a deputy city attorney who actually prosecutes this case, depends on the office.
I'm going to sue him for malicious prosecution.
Okay.
I'm going to sue everybody involved. I'm going to sue the cops.
So,
I'm going to
Mr.
sue the
Castro,
county.
I appreciate you have an opinion. Today's just the arraignment.
I got you.
Saying all these things,
you're
we're
just-
here
you're
for
just
your
getting-
misdemeanor case,
Sure,
okay?
but there's a bigger issue. There's transparency in the courtroom, which is the best thing that could possibly happen. Now the people get to hear that I'm going to sue Jeffrey, and I'm going to sue Matthew, and I'm going to sue every one of
So
those
here's what we're not
cops.
gonna do, Mr. DeCastro. This is not going to be a personal pulpit for your, philosophical difference or belief. You have the media here, and that's fine, this is
Great.
an open court.
It's
But
great.
I don't want you to start saying things too far extraneous, for purposes of this misdemeanor charge, because
Well-
that's what, no, do not interrupt me. Because that's what we're here for, okay? So here's the thing, I'm recording everything, and you need to be aware that that's a two-sided thing. You're representing yourself, so I'm having this conversation with you. All these statements that you're saying can also potentially be used against you because you're getting recorded. So just so you understand. So here's what we're gonna do. Assuming you're entering a not guilty plea,
Does the
correct?
misdemeanor carry jail time?
Possibly, yes.
Possible jail time. So you said a second ago that this is a misdemeanor case as though it's something minor, but I can be put in a dungeon and locked away.
Okay. In no way
So that's true.
did I imply that this was minor
Okay.
by
Yeah, it's a big
saying
deal.
that it's a misdemeanor.
It's a big deal.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr.
thanks.
DeCastro, let's not get off on the wrong foot. I have my job to do, and I'm not trying to engage in a conversation that's adversarial with you today.
No, I'm not
I
trying to
would
either. I'm not trying. I like you a lot. I think you look like a real nice person.
Okay.
I got nothing against you
So we're
personally.
gonna enter a not guilty plea
Thank
on
you.
your behalf
Thank
today.
you.
I'm gonna reset this for a pretrial. I do need to understand because you said you were gonna have standby counsel, so are you going to represent yourself primarily? Or do you wanna have that conversation, come back with your attorney? Because there's certain procedural things I'll need to do to protect due process and your due process. If you wanna go ahead and represent yourself.
Right. No, I'm going to have a standby attorney, and that has to do with a few different things. But I should probably consult with my attorney before I say anything, because it could be used against me later.
Absolutely, yeah, that's fine, and I would rather that you protect yourself because we're recording, and that is where I'm coming from and the kind of conversations and comments that I'm making to you today.
Sure.
So you are obviously entitled to represent yourself, that is your right. But let's do this, let's get you a pretrial date, and that date, ordinary course, for private attorney will be
May 1st at 1:30.
May 1st at 1:30?
I think I have.
Do you need a different date?
I may. I may need a different date because I have a different thing in Indiana. I'm just not sure. Can I just look in my phone real
Of
quick
course.
at my calendar here?
It looks as though he could not keep his bravado in check. Too bad for him.
In any way adversarial to you at
Okay,
all.
I'm glad to hear that,
I
Mr.
just,
DeCastro, because we may be
Yeah,
on this case
yeah,
for
I
a
have
while.
nothing against
Okay.
you. I don't know you. You seem like a nice person to me. I couldn't possibly hold anything against you personally. So I'm just looking for the date that I have in Indiana. I sue lots of cops all around the country. I help sue lots of cops around the country if they violate people's rights. So I have a case in Indiana that I'm just looking for the date. And that May 1st,
Yes, at 1:30.
can't talk, I'm in court. Judge is looking at me.
Is it easier if I give you a different date and then you look at that?
Well, I'm just not sure if it's May 1st or June 1st. I'm just gonna go there because I'm assisting with the financing of filing a federal civil rights lawsuit against these cops who arrested this man for filming cops. So I just wanna make sure that I'm there when that happens. You know, I mean, it's a lot of work, so.
Something tells me you won't be available to go anywhere for at least the next 6 months or longer, once the trial for your most recent arrest is over.
He's texting me back right now. I'll know the date in 1 second.
Okay,
I hate
I
to
see
waste
what
any,
you're saying.
I hate to waste any of these people's time
You're
at all
not wasting
whatsoever.
anyone's time.
I just want to make sure that, because then we have to reset it again. If it's possible for my attorney to be here and me not to be here,
Absolutely,
well, then we can set it for any date that's most
Okay.
convenient for the court.
that's fine. You
Cool.
will need to inform your attorney of that date, and then
Okay.
I'm sure they will know to appear for you. If nobody's there on that day, that would be a problem.
That would be a bad thing.
Right, so you would need to be here if in fact this is not your attorney that you're gonna hire. Because then I need to figure out, do you need more time or?
No, I already have
to
an attorney retained.
Okay, so we will keep the May 1st, 1:30 date for your standby attorney to appear for you. And you do not need to appear on that date as long as your lawyer is here.
What time is that at, ma'am?
1:30 in the afternoon, and you are in Department 1, May 1st.
Department 1 at 1:30. Set.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right, I will
Okay,
see you
I
and your
appreciate your
attorney on
time.
that day, or just your attorney, Mr. DeCastro.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, you too.
With game 1 of the games of Fuck Around and Find Out and Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes over, Chille now heads to game 2. On today's docket, case number 23-CR-013015, Jose Maria DeCastro is in the courtroom for his bench trial for his March 15th, 2023 arrest for the charges of obstruction and resisting. Jose Maria DeCastro, come on down.
All right, Jose DeCastro, 23 CR 013015.
Good morning, Your Honor. Agnes Botello and Liz McCabe for the record. Good morning, State.
Good morning, Michael Me on behalf of the defendant is present with me this morning.
So I have signed 2 media requests that permit recording or photographing these proceedings, but I have not granted any other requests to record or live stream these proceedings. So I need Mr. DeCastro and everybody else who wants to stay in the courtroom to surrender their phones, or you can leave.
Are your phone covered and I'll take one or you can exit.
I need Mr. DeCastro to empty all of his pockets.
What's that?
Empty
Empty your pockets and give up your phones to the judge.
Okay.
I have to give you my phones?
Yeah.
My phones have to be completely off?
Yep. I don't really want to be part of your YouTube channel. So,
You already are.
great,
You already are.
awesome.
I'm not gonna get into this guy though. I'll get into someone else. I'm
No,
not touching myself.
no, they're gonna go to my marshal.
He's a pig.
Excuse me?
I said he's a pig.
Okay. So I'm not gonna permit you to speak to anybody in my courtroom in that manner, and if you don't want to apologize, I'm gonna hold you in contempt.
I apologize to the court, Your Honor.
No, you can apologize to, they've done nothing to you.
Actually, Your Honor, when you were here, you came over and gave me a directive for no reason and started telling me what to do.
Okay, well.
I have all the respect in the world for the court. I follow the rule of law all the time. I
No,
trust
it
the
is,
rule of
it is their job to maintain the safety and security of the courtroom.
law. I agree with you, Your Honor.
So, if you want to speak like that in my courtroom, I'm gonna hold you in contempt. And if I hold you in contempt, you're going to jail. That is not my wish, okay?
I wish you would.
All right, so I need you to empty your pockets too. Suit pocket, pants pocket.
This is illegal. This is a violation of my Fourth Amendment.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. I don't have any recording devices on me. What are you talking about?
How about suit jacket?
I don't have anything on me. This is preposterous.
No, it's
This
not.
really is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Me, your phone too. Off.
They're recording everything.
They have a media request.
That's right, and I'm not recording anything. Your guy here took my phone, so his phone's not on.
Right.
You can take the lawyer's phone too?
No, I'm not gonna take the lawyer's phone. He's an officer of the court. All right, do we have everybody's phones? Are they off? All right, good. All right.
After hearing more of Chille's bravado, let me put why he is not happy with the marshal into context. Thanks to a member of the public who was there, we in an undisclosed social media site were given some pre-trial information of just what went on before court started. Chille has arrived. His supporters have been moved to back row away from him. Chille passing out his plan to his 2 supporters. Me has arrived. Talking to Chille. Chille rapping fingers on bench impatiently like he's in charge. Chille just took Doc's back. Give me those documents. Said it like he was their dad. Very weird. Woman of color testifying in unrelated case. Has small child on lap about 5 that wouldn't stop talking. Had to be removed. Chille turned to supporters and said, 10 more years and they'll be shooting him. Facepalm. Bailiff told Chille to take feet off bench, arguing with bailiff. Calling him a cocksucker. You are a pig. Meet me at the gym. Supporters laughing. Clerk called bailiff in back. Bailiff is back. Tiny little dick, bro. You have no balls. Are you closeted gay? Shave your beard. You can't tell me how to sit. Bailiff has left again. Now that you all have context, let's continue.
All right, this is the time set for the trial of State of Nevada versus Jose DeCastro, 23 CR 013015. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
How many witnesses do you have?
We anticipate 1.
All right, is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I have your request to convert counsel to standby counsel. I'm going to deny that request. Either you represent him or he should have previously requested a forensic canvas to represent himself. That, I just consider that a delay tactic, so that request is denied. Are you ready to proceed? Otherwise, I'm assuming you are.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, will the state please call the first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Brandon Ford.
And blammo! The judge puts Chille in his place about having a standby lawyer. His plan was for him to do the opening and closing while his lawyer did all the questioning. Tough break. For the sake of time, I am going to go to the tail end of Officer Bork being questioned by Mr. Me, Chille's defense lawyer.
Did you see him speak to the driver after you exited the vehicle at any point?
I don't remember if he spoke to the driver after I exited.
At any point, did you hear specifically what he may have said to the driver?
No, I was too far away and it was windy.
Is your position that anytime you're engaged in a traffic stop, nobody can speak to the driver?
They can speak to them at a reasonable distance.
And is that 21 feet?
It could be shorter, it could be longer. Again, depends on the environment, totality, the circumstances.
Do you think people can easily verbally communicate at 21 feet?
No, not without shouting.
Did at some point the defendant inform you that he was a member of the press?
He did?
Did that influence any of the orders you chose to give or not give to the defendant?
No, it doesn't matter.
Why does it not? What is your basis of that statement, I guess?
Media, reporters, and standard citizens, they treat them all the same.
So you becoming aware that somebody is a member of the press does not affect your decision-making in reference to your First Amendment training?
No, and how was I to know that he was a member of the press? Whenever I interact with members of the press, they usually identify what station they're with or a group that they're with. They usually have some sort of identification, name badge, and we have a good relationship with press out here. They don't approach us the way that DeCastro did.
Are you familiar with the difference between traditional press or independent media?
Yes, but again, independent media would approach us more respectfully than DeCastro.
Is your opinion that traditional media has different rights than new media, independent media?
Objection, Your Honor. At this point, I think we're well beyond the scope of.
Sustained.
Thank you.
Chille has always maintained that journalists should be given special rights over and above the average citizen, and that they should not be subjected to arrest. That's not how our rights or the laws work. Also, the false narrative that he was arrested for filming has been thoroughly debunked by his own video camera footage and police body cam footage. There were no violations of any of his rights.
Court's indulgence, I apologize. So your testimony is, if I recall correctly, that you received First Amendment training when you initially went through your officer training.
Yes,
And then you received one follow-up after that.
I can't, no, it was more than one. I don't know exactly how many. Typically that training is annual.
And your testimony, just to reiterate, this is the first time you've experienced a First Amendment issue of this nature in your career?
Objection. I believe I objected to that question when it was posed as like a violent encounter and it was sustained. And I also objected on the grounds of relevance. As the court indicated, what we're concerned about is his interaction with the defendant specifically. And so I object.
Sustained, I'm only concerned about this interaction.
Do you recall during your interactions with the defendant that you told him that you believed First Amendment auditors often pull out guns and shoot people?
I didn't say that they often do that.
Do you recall what you said?
I don't. I would have said that he was a stranger to me and that officers get ambushed all the time. It could have been a First Amendment auditor. It could have been a regular citizen. It could have been a cook from one of the places nearby. I wouldn't have specifically said that First Amendment auditors are at higher risk.
And again, just to reiterate, your testimony is that
Objection, I mean, anytime it's prefaced as just to reiterate, I feel like I should object on an asked and answered grounds. And I'm not, just to hear it, but it just sounds like a reiteration of the questions that have been previously asked. So my objection is asked and answered.
I'm going to ask this question before I rule on the objection.
again, I'm just trying to clarify because I think this point was ambiguous, but do you recall the defendant telling you that he was a member of the press during the interaction with the defendant?
Asked and answered.
Sustained.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You redirect?
No, thank you.
Thank you, officer. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Officer, stand by in the anteroom, please.
Does the state rest?
At this point, we do.
Does the defense have any witnesses?
Your Honor, I call Jose DeCastro.
It seems as though his defense strategy of his being arrested for filming has not gone to plan. Can he win game 2 with his testimony? Let's find out.
Raise your right hand, please, one by the clerk. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please be seated.
Mr. DeCastro, before you testify, I'm obligated to inform you that you have the right to testify in this proceeding, but you also have the right to remain silent. And should you choose to remain silent, I may not hold that against you in making my decision. Do you understand that?
I do.
And do you still wish to testify?
Yes, I do.
All right, please go ahead.
You have a YouTube channel.
Yes, I do.
Can you give some insight into what that channel was about?
Objection, relevance.
What's the relevance?
Your Honor, the relevance is that we're presenting a First Amendment defense, and the defendant is a member of the press. There's different standards for First Amendment rulings where there's public policy at issue. He can give insight into that.
I'm going to allow it for a bit and see where it goes.
Yes, I do have I do have a YouTube channel, and the reason I have a YouTube channel is because of how many cops kill people every year, how many cops hurt, maim, torture, rape, and kill people every single year. It's such an epidemic that the rest of the world, I get thousands of emails saying, only in America does this happen. I started filming cops because when I was cheated in 2002 and
Objection at this point, relevance,
well, this is the reason I'm a member of the press.
this narrative.
So can you ask him a question?
Yes, Your Honor. What type of films do you make for your YouTube channel?
I only film police in their official capacity. I'm known across the country and across the world.
And why do you engage in that type of filming?
So I'm going to ask you, Mr. Mead, to direct your questions about the incident in question.
The reason I was filming this report that day,
Objection, Your Honor.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
There wasn't a question posed, so
Oh, I-
I'm not sure what he was saying.
Mr. DeCastro, on the dating question, why did you approach that vehicle?
I was filming that cop because that's what I do for a living. I am a member of the press, and I invoked my right to be press. I always invoke my right to be press within the first 10 seconds of engaging with police, and I have thousands of videos that prove this.
So this is how you make money.
This is not how specifically I make money. I make money from selling legal documents to people.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you recall the officer telling you to back up?
Yes, I do.
And what did you do after he told you to back up?
I took a couple steps back. I just showed him that I was willing to back up a little bit. However, if I may, In Arizona, they created a 10-foot law.
Objection, relevance, we're not in Arizona, it's the state of Nevada.
So I'm gonna allow it because I think that goes to why he kept saying 10 feet in the video, even though I will take judicial notice that you're not in the state of Arizona, you're in the state of Nevada.
Well, a federal judge struck it down, Your Honor, and what,
Stop. Can you ask him a question?
Yes, Your Honor. Approximately how many feet did you back up?
I backed up a foot or two. I was at least 10 feet away from that car that the driver was pulled over in.
And when you spoke to the driver, what did you say?
Just after she was okay. The reason I phoned police is because they abuse people so often.
Do you recall the officer telling you not to speak with the driver?
Yes,
And did you make any statements to the driver after that command was given?
absolutely not.
Did the officer ever give you a specific distance to back up to?
No, he didn't.
If he did, would you have complied with that?
Sure.
Did you believe you were complying with the officer's commands?
100%. I also informed him I'm a member of the press, I'm a constitutional law scholar, that this is what I do.
Do you recall the officer explaining to you why he decided to arrest you?
There's several parts to the reason why he said he was going to arrest me. He said he was going to arrest me because I wouldn't turn my head a certain direction. If I didn't turn and face the car with my head, that he would place me under arrest instead of just giving me a ticket.
Do you recall him explaining why he decided to detain you before he arrested you?
He decided to obtain me because he said I was obstructing, which, from my understanding, is a physical act where I would have to get in the way. He said that the driver deserves privacy. I believe my First Amendment rights are not up for feelings.
Did he explain to you that the basis of your detention was related primarily to the issue of privacy or the issue of you backing up?
Well, I think from the officer's testimony, we can see that he's scared of the driver, scared of me, scared of everything. They teach them to be afraid of everything. So I had 2 cameras out. It's identified as a member of the press. I'm sorry, repeat the question. I want to get it specific for the record.
Sure. The question was, did the officer explain to you that the basis of your detention was because of you not backing up or because of the privacy issue of the driver?
It was both. He said that, he told me to back up. I backed up a little bit. Then he said, she deserves privacy. And then I told him to go get in your car, little doggy, and write your ticket. And at that point, his face turned bead red, and his veins in his neck stuck out because we were over 20 feet away. And you had to holler to hear each other because the wind was probably 30 miles an hour.
Did you at any point attempt to hit any of the officers involved?
No, absolutely not.
Did you intentionally swat any of the officers?
Absolutely not. He was giving me unlawful commands. I should not have been detained after I identified as a member of the press. If he ever reached a hand out towards me, I wrestle and teach MMA, and I have for 30 years. So it's just a natural reaction as I'm retreating from somebody. If I may have put my hand up, as he said, as he testified himself, I certainly am a law-abiding citizen. I don't break the law. So I would not have tried to assault an officer under any circumstances.
Is it possible that during the interactions there was inadvertent contact between you and the officer?
Sure, he decided to go hands-on with me when he was giving me unlawful commands. And there was absolutely no reason for it. I was willing to comply with anything he asked within reason, because I don't want to have a fist fight with another man on the street.
Do you recall the officer ordering you to go to his patrol vehicle?
I do.
And what did you do in response to that?
Initially, I told him no, but then when he began to get physical with me and start to grab me and touch me, I said, okay, I'll go over to your car. His car was 35 feet away. I then led him to his car. It's on video, you can see it. I would walk right up to his car, and then he insisted still on grabbing me. After he saw me pull out an additional phone, which that's what press people do. We have lots of cameras on us.
And did you inform the officer that you were a member of the press?
Oh, several times. It's in the transcripts. I've transcribed them myself. Several times I told him I'm a member of the press.
And did you explain to the officer that you have a background in constitutional law?
Yes, I told him I'm a constitutional law scholar, which was a moniker given to me by other people who are also, they have their own channels, their own press, and that's what some other lawyers on another channel called me 3 years ago. And I since adapted the moniker.
And just to get some, I guess, further background, were you looking for police to report on this particular day?
No, the cops hide on the side of the road to pull people over. It's pretty regular in our country. I was just in the parking lot there. I saw that Mr. Bork had somebody pulled over, concerned for her safety. I began to film.
And why do you think that law enforcement traffic stops are relevant to the public?
That's where most people get killed.
Objection relevance to
Sustained.
that question. Move to strike.
Sustained.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
State.
I have no questions for this witness.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Like he says, we don't stop. Chille lies like he breathes. He always looks for police to harass. The prosecution didn't need to ask questions because Officer Bork's body cam differed from Chille's testimony, and he literally sank his own case.
This is Ben Trust.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Any argument by the state?
Your Honor, the state asks you to find the defendant guilty of both the obstructing a public officer as well as resisting a public officer charged against him. The video very adequately portrays, and I don't think it's disputed by the defendant, what the context was of the interaction with the officer. I would venture to say that had the defendant just complied with the original order to not engage with the driver and to back up, we wouldn't be here. He wouldn't have found himself further engaging with Officer Bork. This is not a First Amendment issue. As you heard over and over and over again on video, Officer Bork did not have a problem with the defendant recording. It's not a First Amendment issue. It's an officer safety issue. Here you have an officer who conducted a lawful traffic stop. You saw the nature of the stop. There was no animosity between the officer and the driver. It was rather peaceful. They were engaged, banter back and forth. He would have, as he testified, he was trying to determine whether he was going to cite her or let her go with a warning. And then you have an individual, the defendant, introduce himself to a situation. Traffic stops, Your Honor, are inherently dangerous, particularly in crowded parking lots. I guess anywhere, I would venture to say. This officer was reasonable in thinking that anyone who would approach in the manner that the defendant approached his scene would have a reason to fear for his safety, or at least be suspicious of this individual's motives coming in. The officer had no problem with the recording. The officer had no problem with the defendant observing. It was when he inserted himself into this lawful detention that was occurring with the Hyundai driver that the officer turned his attention onto the defendant. This is not a First Amendment issue. This is an individual who took what he perceived to be his rights too far. The officer was well within his right, as well as acting reasonably when he asked him to back up. That 21-foot rule, it's appropriate. He said that was the training that they received in terms of the distance that's allowed for someone who means to do them harm. It's a threat assessment. We don't know when the defendant approached whether he had a gun concealed, whether he had a knife concealed, whether he had other weapons. And you'll hear multiple times in the video, Officer Bork yelling, "Stop reaching, stop reaching." This is an unknown, when defense counsel asked Officer Bork all of these questions about how it is that you do this, and Officer Bork kept responding, it depends on the situation, it depends on the totality of the circumstances. Here was an officer acting alone, individually, engaged one-to-one with a driver. That he had no problem with. You insert another individual who enters the scene in the manner that the defendant did, and now this officer's attention is going to be divided. He had every reason to fear for his safety as well as that of the driver. Again, if he had just complied with the officer's commands or demands to back up, and, you know, a lot was made about, hey, he didn't have an opportunity to tell the defendant exactly how far back. As the officer testified, even just with the, hey, back up, the defendant didn't back up, not willingly. That's why the officer had to continue to engage with him and force him into the situation. Had he complied, he would not have been charged with obstruction. Had he complied initially, he would not have been charged with the resisting. The officer was, you are gonna have to assess credibility. There's nothing in the video or Officer Borg's testimony that would cause the court to question his veracity or his intention for that matter. He was very honest in that he didn't believe the defendant wasn't trying to harm him necessarily with the SWAT. That's why the defendant wasn't charged with the battery on a protected person or police officer. But that SWAT, Your Honor, I would argue, was meant to resist. At that point in time, the officer was trying to detain him and subsequently arrest him on the obstruction as depicted in the video. And so at this point, I think we proved by beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did hinder Officer Borg's investigation and detention of the Hyundai driver, and that he resisted the officer's arrest and or attempt to arrest him. And so we would ask that you find the defendant guilty of both.
All right, thank you. Ben?
Yes, Your Honor. So first of all, you cannot obstruct an unlawful order. I disagree with the state that this is not a First Amendment issue. The First Amendment in this context actually has two parts. There's the filming and the right to film within a reasonable distance. The case law in all the federal circuits, Your Honor, there's no 21 feet rule that's been approved by any court of which I'm aware. That there is a 10-foot rule. That seems to be the rule that is applied by most of the federal circuits in interpreting the First Amendment. I submitted a bench brief that kind of goes through that issue, if the court's had a chance to review that.
I don't have that. When did you submit it?
It was submitted yesterday, Your Honor.
I mean, at this point, I would move to strike because it's untimely, but I got it this morning when I walked into court.
Go ahead.
So the officer's testimony to that, there's essentially this 21-foot distance where anybody can charge an officer and cause physical harm to an officer. If that is applied universally, Your Honor, it totally diminishes and violates the First Amendment. That is, as the officer testified, a 21-foot radius that he can attempt to impose. I believe his testimony was anytime there's not an obstacle between a person and somebody that law enforcement is interacting with. And that's just not what the law requires, Your Honor. The First Amendment gives their media, new media, old media, it gives individuals the right to film government agents. There's no dispute that that's the requirement, and if the officer is applying this 21-foot circumference to all law enforcement interactions, he's effectively eliminated the ability to film law enforcement going about their duties. The commands to not talk to the driver are also not based on any actual legal justification. There's no right to privacy in public, whether you're engaged with law enforcement or not. There's no requirement or no statute, no law that citizens can't interact with drivers that are interacting with law enforcement. So what's taken place here, Your Honor, is that this officer has taken it upon himself to essentially act as the legislature and created these rules that have no basis in any law and in fact are contrary to the First Amendment. Again, you can't obstruct an unlawful demand, so there is no obstruction of justice here. Resisting arrest, Your Honor, the court can see the video. Essentially what happened is he walked over to the front of the vehicle. There was some dispute about why he was being detained. That was discussed. The case law in that area, Your Honor, is that if it's an unlawful arrest, which it was in this case because they're essentially arresting him for violating these unlawful orders that they're pronouncing. Again, the case law is you can passively resist an unlawful arrest, and that's all that occurred here. Thank you.
Having to be 21 feet away does not stop anyone with a cell phone or camera from recording the police because those devices have Zoom capabilities. And there are mics that one can get to be able to hear from that far away or even farther. So the defense's First Amendment issues are a moot point.
All right, Mr. DeCastro, please stand. The problem with the argument that your attorney makes is it completely fails to consider the safety of the officer and the safety of the driver. The officer doesn't know who you are, and the driver doesn't know who you are. And you don't have any right to interfere with that officer doing his investigation and deciding if he wants to issue a ticket to this driver. And you also don't have any business approaching the driver. The driver didn't ask you for help. The driver didn't say, help, help, you know. You didn't see an altercation happening between the officer and this driver. The officer didn't protest that you were filming. There's no problem with filming. You can film, it's fine, all right? But you did interfere with his investigation. You did interfere with his ability to do his job. You did put him in a position where he is concerned for his safety and the safety of the driver. So I believe the state's met their burden beyond reasonable doubt. I'm going to find you guilty of obstructing a public officer and resisting a public officer. So I'd like to hear from the state and then your attorney prior to sentencing.
Your Honor, in terms of sentencing, I would ask that our defendant enter and complete an impulse control class. I would ask that the court lobby a $500 fine or the equivalent in community service. I would ask that the defendant be ordered to stay out of trouble for the pendency of the case. And I would ask for a 90-day suspended sentence. And that's on as to each count to one concurrent. That's our request.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, I'm asking the court to sentence the defendant to credit for time served for these offenses. Even if the court concludes, and the court did conclude that he didn't have the right to do what he did, I think the court can see that he sincerely believed that he had the right to do so. That's based on his past experiences and the training he's received in reference to the First Amendment. I don't think there was any intent from the defendant to engage in any wrongdoing in this case, Your Honor. And that being the case, especially because of the public policy interests at issue.
So when you say he doesn't wish to engage in any wrongdoing, it seems to me from observing him in the video that he wants this. He wants to get arrested. He wants to get into an altercation with police officers. He welcomes this. This helps his YouTube channel. He called the officers here in my courtroom today pigs. He called and he's nodding his head up and down. So apparently he hates every law enforcement officer in the United States. All right, please stand up, sir. Are you finished with your request for credit for time served?
I would just emphasize, Your Honor, that the defendant testified and he sincerely believes that he is providing a public service when he reviews and films these incidents. I understand the court may have a different view of that, but when we're talking about First Amendment public policy issues such as supervising people involved in government, I think that is something the court can take into consideration, not to have a chilling effect on that. I'll spit on that, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. DeCastro, please stand.
So the state wants to go easy on him, but also wants some accountability. And of course, his lawyer wants him to get a slap on the wrist and not be held accountable for any of his actions. The judge obviously has him pegged, and rightly so. Note how he nodded his head and gave the judge a thumbs up, confirming everything she said about him as the truth. He also kept sitting down after she told him to stand. The disrespect for any authority by him is disgusting. His lawyer, knowing what is coming and that he is guilty, still continues with it's a First Amendment rights issue because he is giving his client the best defense his client paid for, which isn't a defense at all.
I hereby sentence you to 90 days in the Clark County Detention Center on count 1, 90 days in the Clark County Detention Center on count 2, to run consecutive for a total of 180 days in custody. Thank you.
Sentence suspended or?
Oh no, I'm going to start right now.
That's right, inmate number 01669561. You may have lost the game of fuck around and find out, but you won the game of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Your prize is an all-expense-paid trip, commissary and phone calls not included, in the beautiful Clark County Detention Center located in Las Vegas, Nevada. You will spend 180 days with 3 hots and a cot and all the companionship you will ever need.
How long have I been in the house? Just get it in the car. Yeah, it's in the trunk. Can I give my keys real fast? My keys are in there. In the car garage. They're inside my. Can I read it? No, in the briefcase. Yeah.
I'll get your stuff.
It's a minivan, so I'll put place on it. Get a hold of my assistant, James.